Sure. Hey, Lila, how's it going?
Hey, how are you? I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Oh, the
Good.
looks like YouTube came on a little bit later, but that's okay. But I
We
have
are here. We are alive.
a
I'm
question
happy.
for you. What is
Yes.
our question of the day?
Ooh, question of the day. What's your favorite channel to reach out on?
What is your favorite channel to reach out on?
Yes.
Mine has changed over the years.
Really?
And you actually had a really good story about this too. I don't know if you wanted to lead with that while people are jumping in the chat.
Yes. Hi guys. Welcome to Hop In. Yeah, my favorite channel is obviously social selling. It is my favorite channel. I will die on that hill, And I was just telling an SDR that I was meeting, um, kind of how I got into it, and I got into it so quickly right off the bat in my SDR role. Um, it was honestly because I had the mindset of like I wanted to be the best on my team. I wanted to make a splash. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be an AE and stand out. So I was like, okay, how do I stand out? So I saw what everyone else was doing. Um, hey Nativa, I saw what everyone else was doing. They're doing cold calling, emailing, and I just didn't see anybody doing video prospecting or LinkedIn. And I was like, okay, my team is not doing that great right now. Like, there's a couple people that aren't hitting their numbers. So I was kind of like, why am I going to just follow them? So I'm like, why don't I just do my own thing? So instead of just being a sheep, I was a shepherd and I just went and did my own thing and people started to look at me, and yeah, I had lots of success with social selling and it just worked right off the bat. It just seemed very natural to me.
It's always a good place. It's always funny when you hear people's like how they dip their toes and actually started because
Mhm.
it's very seldom that it was on purpose. I'm just going to go in and start social selling. That's my place it's going to start. It's always like my story was I was cold calling and it went nowhere. But the only time I was getting results cold calling was 5 to 9, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. because that's when all the gatekeepers went home and the execs were sitting at their desks. Well, you can only do that for so long until you burn out. And I honestly didn't want to be at the office until 10 p.m. every day. So I started sending LinkedIn requests because somebody told me it was a good idea. And it was cool that I could just send requests, go about my day, and circle back at the end of the day and book all my meetings.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, this is a lot easier than just cold calling.
Mhm.
Why don't I keep doing this? And that's literally
Right.
how it started for me.
Yeah, and I feel like when you get into sales, you think, "Oh, it has to be like you're always on. You always have to be cold calling and it's just gonna be stressful job?" And I think when I joined the SDR role, kind of like what Nativa said, she's saying that she likes emailing because it's less anxiety and more time to really put personalization into it. I think and I had anxiety too coming into it. So I was really excited when I got to this SDR role because I was like, oh my gosh, I can now just write out what I'm feeling and I don't have to explain it and be on all the time on the phone. So I think, people personalities who are good at being on all the time and they like cold calling, that's for them. But just like Nativa, she likes emailing and she likes taking her time and, you know, creating a beautiful email. And I was the same way. I thought LinkedIn was a casual approach and it just worked for me. So,
And even today, like I still do multiple touches. So like I'll start with LinkedIn. And if I look at the company and most of the people I'd want to talk to haven't been active in the past 30 days, then I ask the question, should I call or should I email?
mhm.
What is the path of least resistance? And I think that one thing as an SDR, you gotta think about what is the best way to get into the account, and also just play to your natural strengths. If you are stronger and feel more confident emailing, I would double down on that, especially if you're getting results, because you're just gonna do better. But I would always have something else because usually you're gonna need 2 to 3 channels to get that person in a reasonable time frame.
Mhm. For sure. Yeah. And I think it just depends on each person. So it's just depends on your personality. So yeah, I'm seeing a couple answers, but everyone put in the chat, what channel for cold outreach do you prefer? because it's important to know and understand your personality because the job will be a lot more enjoyable for you instead of just burning out.
I thought maybe at the start, like, one thing would be interesting because we've been getting this question a lot is what are good numbers? So we hear a lot about activity metrics, but how do you know that what you're doing on LinkedIn is working? What are good numbers?
Mm.
So if you had to go and say, like, what are the things you track that you're like, acceptance rates from that to meeting or to conversations?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a good question, and it's actually a really tough one to answer because LinkedIn, it's a really tough way to it's a tough channel to track because it's a separate entity from your CRM or outreach or whatever. Um, and if you're in outreach, you can send a message from outreach and it'll track that task and that activity. But commenting on people's posts, connecting with them, looking at their profile, like all these touches don't really get materialized into a number, and it's really hard. So I guess how I used to do it, I mean, I was just telling SDR before this, I would do like I have done it a couple times, and I went through it, and I was like, okay, I'm on the enterprise team for enterprise accounts, and if you look at big companies that have thousands of employees, I'm gonna at least go after 50, or I'm gonna send connection notes to like 50 of them because there's a lot of people, right, that you can go after.
Hmm.
And if I sent 50 connection requests, I would maybe get like 10, 15 that were to accept me. So let's say I had 10. From 10, I would send them all messages, right? And try to connect with them, reach out to them, trying to get a response. Out of those 10, I would probably say like five got back to me and started a conversation. And out of those five, maybe like one, two, three would say yes to meeting offline and chatting with me. Um, and I'd either like sell them right in the chat and be like, hey, this is exactly how we can help you. I think it would be really beneficial. Like, would you be open to meeting my expert in XYZ? Or I'd be like, hey, let's just have a chat and meet. And then I would run a call. So yeah, it's tough to track, but I think if you do enough top funnel activity of just connection notes, like sending a lot of those, that's probably going to directly relate to how many people you connect with. And then how many people you connect with is going to directly relate to your at bats of trying to get meetings.
We've been playing with a little bit of campaign strategy. And so there's a
Mhm.
couple different ways that we've started to look at this with companies. So if you're tackling, say, a list of 50 leads,
Mhm.
there should be a trigger.
Yeah.
And so it kind of goes back to that why change, why now? If there's no why now, I don't personalize because there's no good reason to go and actually send them a connection request. So just put them in your network. That's fine.
Hmm.
And then use content to sell them. So that's another layer. But if
Hmm.
you have a good reason to reach out, why now? That's a fun place to play. But
Hmm.
when you're sending out, how many people should connect with you? If you're getting less than 30%, you have an issue.
Yeah.
And you got to rethink your strategy or who you're talking to because maybe it's not relevant to their day to day. Kind of
Hmm.
the top campaigns are somewhere between 50 and 80%. How they write their profile makes a big difference. Is it a landing page or is it a resource hub?
Hmm.
What's your tagline? That makes a really big difference. Headshot. Are you smiling? Had a 50% impact on if people connected with me or not. I thought Morgan was kidding, but it actually makes a huge difference. And also have enough triggers to hit quota. One thing I failed at when I started is I just leaned on one lit. Well, actually, I leaned on the yellow pages, and that was horrible. Don't recommend going back to those cold calling days.
Yeah.
But have enough triggers. Have 2, 3, 5, whatever it takes for you to book enough meetings, and it just takes time to dial that in. But if you're getting less than a 30% connect rate, and then less, just go kind of 30s the whole way down, and so from the connection only 30% of the people or less talk to you, and then from that book meetings, then it's a sign that you just need to tweak things and maybe go talk to your manager and see how you could work together to refine it a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think you can always do things better, right? If you're just randomly sending things out and nothing's landing, it's time for a revamp, right? And time for A/B testing to really see. Um, I mean, all you need to know is that these channels work and social selling does really work. So, in order to see that success, you have to have a good profile, you have to have a good message, you have to know who you're going after. So, just like any other channel, um, the first thing I say, and you mentioned it, Nick, is when I'm chatting and doing one-on-ones with SDRs, like, and they're like, "How do I start my social selling? Where do I start?" I'm like, "Okay, let's go to your profile first. Before even what message you're sending, let's go to your profile." And then I kind of look through and make sure you have a good background, a good photo, and you have personal things about you. And it's a landing page for your company. So you also want some key things. It's not the whole page. You're not your company. You want to make sure it's personal to you, but yeah, you want to make sure that if they go to your profile, which they probably will, think through, reverse engineer. It's like, what would I want them to see? So, you want them to connect with them. You want them to connect with you. You want them to reply back to your email or your reply, whatever, or your message. You want to get a reply. That's the main goal. So coordinate your profile to try to be yourself and just be personable and try to bridge that gap and make sure that they get back to you. So yeah, I think the profile is it just a big point, because if it's a bad profile, like they're for sure not gonna reply back.
Yeah, it's where kind of
Yeah.
everything starts and stops.
Yes.
And when we talk about like what activities book meetings, most people go and tell me like, well, I need to go and dial in my personalized invitations. And
Mhm.
that is a great place to go and invest. Like half an hour that day. You get 20 a day for a max of 100 a week. Or sometimes you can go and play with that until you end up in LinkedIn jail, which is not fun. I've tested
Max
this
out.
thoroughly.
I used to max out every day as an SDR.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
used to be higher too. Like we used to be able to do way more connection requests, but only the
Mhm.
past like 6 months they dropped it, so it is 100. So what do you do that has no limits, but is a great place as an SDR to go and play? Well, comments. Find the conversations that are already happening, and
Mhm.
so think about your discovery calls or talking to the AEs or talk to CS and say, what are the things that people are usually asking you? What are those questions? What are those problems? How do they say it? Take that, especially look at
Mhm.
your emails because it's written and you can go back to it and
Mhm.
search that on LinkedIn. Find people talking
Yeah.
about that and comment. And
Mhm.
that's a great way to go and book more meetings.
Yeah, and I think another thing that you could do on social selling, if you've maxed out for the day or that doesn't have a max limit, is just do some prep work. Like in Sales Nav, people don't utilize the list enough, because you can make key lists of, you can filter by your accounts and pull up all the people that you are in your accounts and that are on Sales Nav you've saved, and then just look at your first degree connections and start pinging all of them. So what I would do is that my first activity would be run through people and start connecting with everyone and do my activities to try to make sure that I ensure a connection. And then my next activity would be follow up. All the people who I'm already connected to and have not sent a message to, for sure send a message. And then the people who I'm connected to, who I've already sent messages to, I'm trying to continue to reach out to them. I will just ping them again. And if I sent them a text before, I will send them a voice memo. If I send them a voice memo before, I'll send them a video, and I'll just keep changing it up until they get back to me, because likely they'll get back to you and say like, "Hey, stop messaging me," or they'll comment on what you're saying if you make your messages approachable. So I think that's another way you can do it, is just like prep work and see who you're already connected to in lists.
One of the things I do is a little bit different, but you have to find a number that's manageable. And I find
Hmm.
for me, it's somewhere between 10 and 20 is I think of it like a bench where you're warming up prospects.
Yeah.
And so people that I've already had really good exchanges with that are like kind of like those phone ready leads, those people that
Mhm.
are you already have dialogue, I put them in a list And those are my only people that I stay on top of. And what I watch is how quickly are they getting back to me? How is my messaging lined up? If I've had a couple conversations and it goes nowhere, I need to change it. But what
Mhm.
I do is as somebody kind of goes cold, I replace them. So I always have 20 people on my bench that I'm actively working. And what I
Mhm.
do is I use those conversations to also create content and go find comments. And so it's kind of like my R&D, like my learning pool. It's like, why didn't that resonate? What was wrong? Why didn't they want to book a meeting with me off that? Or my favorite is when somebody asks you for a meeting, you're like, "Okay, what did I just do that
Mhm.
made that happen?" And that is my favorite thing is I start switching up and saying, "Okay, instead of who can I contact in the company in this account, how can I get them to ask me for a meeting in less than 60 days?"
Yeah. And that's kind of the whole push pull thing of sales and like the organic generation, which everybody wants, you know. Um, I remember, I mean, how I got that was people asking me for a meeting is usually just reaching out to them and asking them questions. Like I would be like, "Oh, how's your day going? Like how's everything going? How's your job going? What is your job doing?" And then ask them questions about their role. And then they just are like, "Hey, I need to go do something and get off chat. Can we meet offline? Like, can we chat?" And I know that's not a meeting because we never talked about sales stuff, but it turns usually into a qual call, and then we'll have a more business conversation. And then I'll pitch them and I'll tell them, what I do and if it's something that they're interested in. And it's kind of like a switch, the casual switch. And it worked many times for me. So I think that is another good way to have them ask you for a meeting and just to meet offline, because they're interested in you and they're invested in you. So I mean, the chances that they would take one meeting for 20-30 minutes with you, they're probably going to take another meeting for 30 minutes with another person that you care about, and it's actually going to help them a lot.
Like that you bring up the switch, the casual switch.
Yep.
But I think we've all been there too, like talking to someone and they're like, "Oh, we've been talking about me for so. What do you do?"
Yes,
It's like
yes.
the you're like, I was
You're like,
patient
let
enough.
me
Great.
explain. Yeah, exactly. You have to be patient enough. Yeah, it's kind of like if you're just having a regular conversation with someone, if you're listening and listening, listening, they go, "Well, enough about me. Tell me about you," and you're like, "Finally." So I think that's a good route for people to take or to try out. So for sure.
One thing I've seen a lot of SDRs do and get a lot of really good success with is they figure out who are the 5 or 10 influencers that their accounts that they're actively pursuing, who are they following? And so you can go into
Mhm.
their profile, look at their activity, who are they following? And then what you do is there's now the new feature where you hit the bell and it tells you every time they post on LinkedIn. And what you do is you go and comment on all of their stuff that's relevant. Just being a human
Mhm.
being, just showing up, earning trust. And then what you do is you go through the comments and you're like, who's in my ICP that I could go and talk to? But just
Mhm.
keep showing up consistently, start great conversations, don't necessarily pitch, just start great conversations, and then you'll get people booking meetings from that or looking at your profile. Once you get a trigger like looking at your profile, be like, you can have fun, like use gifs and be like, hey, saw you poked it, and they're like, you're taking a peek. Did you find what
Mhm.
you were looking for? And you can play with that messaging, but that way you have a system that you can default to that allows you to have lots of conversations at scale that don't make people mad.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think necessarily like having casual conversation that doesn't go anywhere. People are probably saying like, "What if it doesn't go anywhere?" They're still in your network. They're still seeing your post about your company or whatever. They're still an opportunity. They're like a nurture, and you don't even know it. Like having them in your network is a nurture. So it's like over email, call, the conversation dies there, but your life lives on on LinkedIn. So I always try to connect. This is another plug, to always try to connect with anybody that I talk to over email, over call. If they say, "Hey, call me back with more information," I'll be like, "Hey, great. Like, let's be connected on LinkedIn too. Is that okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." So it's like, and even people that I've gotten meetings with too, like those are people are prime for referrals. So optimize LinkedIn for just everything, for all of the funnel of your leads, and it's going to help you get more meetings and more nurture wins.
Yeah, and I imagine you have built such a great following over the past couple of years that
Yeah.
when you post, not only do you get a lot of engagement, but I'm sure people that weren't even on your radar, send you a connection request or, start commenting or shoot you a DM, but it's because you built a relationship with someone you were talking to
Hmm.
and they felt comfortable, so they kept commenting or however that worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I almost had 10K followers now, which is I'm really excited about.
Wow.
And I'm going to be posting about soon because I'm very excited. We're in the pre stages of the celebration, but yeah, it's like I would say maybe like a grand of them, or maybe 500 to a grand, are my prospects, people that I've connected to from various companies, and that it's funny now. People, because I do have a pretty big following, and or not that big compared to others, but um, SDRs right now are like, "Oh, you're connected to all of my prospects that are in my accounts." I'm like, "Can you help me with this?" So it's just funny because I've tried to connect with so many of like top VPs at those companies, and it's very transferable. But yeah, I regarding like me posting too, I've definitely had some of my prospects like my posts and sometimes comment on my posts, and I'm like, "Whoa." Those are quick wins for me. So I don't know. Personal branding is another topic, but it definitely coincides and helps you with your overall social selling strategy. So just build up your following and your connections, I would say.
What are your thoughts on connecting with users and posting content for them of your
Say it
product
again,
or service?
users.
Yeah.
Um, Wait, I'm not sure what you mean.
So
Users.
like at so people that use your product, what are your thoughts on connecting with the people that are actually using on a day-to-day basis
Mhm.
and posting content to help them use it better and using that as a reason for people to keep coming back to you?
Yeah, I think any and all is good. Any strategy you can pull. It's like if they're customers, they're using your product, or you can use keywords and see if they mention your company as a user, reaching out to them and being like, hey, why do you use it, or do you have any people in your network that you've been trying to get on this product? I don't know. I would definitely say that's a go for me.
That was one of the biggest changes I think I made is I actually split up my 20 limit. I did 5 that were senior decision makers and I did 10 that were users. And then my 5 was my buffer for that day because LinkedIn jail sucks when you use it every day.
Very
And
true.
those users are a great way to go bottom up because sometimes they'll say something or you'll see something in a post and you're like, I could use that in a cold call or I could use that's a great lead in on an email.
Hmm.
And comments are a great place to practice your emails.
Totally. And you can also reuse content if you wanted to take what you said in an email and then shorten it to LinkedIn and then just kind of redirect them. That is great too. Or if you want to, if they posted something, you can pull something that they posted and make it an email subject and refer to it. I've seen lots of people get opens. If email is obviously the holy grail of selling, it's a selling channel and they expect it, and you're going to book a meeting there. Um, Everything kind of happens there. They accept a meeting there. So if you want to take that strategy of just kind of using LinkedIn as a plug to your email, it's like, hey, following up with you on LinkedIn, matching a face to name, just wanting to say hi, just sent you an email. Here's a gift card, whatever. Like you can do whatever you need to redirect them. There's many different routes that you can take over LinkedIn.
What would you say? Would you say that your LinkedIn presence helped you get the job you have right now?
That's a good question.
You can say no.
I would, I mean, if I say yes and I'm like, oh, I didn't deserve the job or whatever, but um,
No, I
I
don't
would,
mean that it was the only reason. You're good at what you do. I would definitely not take that.
I think I'm very qualified for the role, and that's why I got it. But I do think it was a contributor because I knew a lot of people here at the company before even starting. Like I knew our VP. I knew Vin Matano works here, and he was probably one of the first influencers I've ever talked to and followed. And to have him back me was definitely big. So, I mean, Yes, LinkedIn is super helpful. It will open up doors to you, and it will, you know, it you can get your own foot in the door, but it's helpful to have other people backing you, and that'll just guarantee you. It just makes your life easier.
Just like a
And
sale,
yeah,
you have champions in house. It's a good it's a good place to be.
champions in house. I like that. Yeah, and LinkedIn helps a lot. It opens so many doors for you. I can't say it enough. It really does.
Would it surprise you if I told you that they're building social selling divisions in companies now and they're putting a follower minimum to apply for that role?
That's crazy.
And it's high.
How high?
So I was thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, like minimum, like probably 500 to 1,000, somewhere in there. They want them to be credible.
Yeah,
What
probably like
what's your
5K.
guess?
It's probably 5K. Is it
I
5K?
yeah, I thought it
Ooh,
was gonna
winner.
be like only like 500 to 1,000, but it was 4 to 5,000 is what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, I would say if you're between 4 to 10K, you're kind of in that premature stage of you're posting, you're active, you're attempting to be a content creator, like someone really big, like Morgan Ingram or something, or Scott Leese, or someone who's like has tons of experience in that. So I'm definitely seeing lots of SDRs, AEs in that 4 to 10K range, because I have a feeling that after that, after 10K, it's just gonna steamroll. Like there's not a lot between the 50K, the 100K, whatever between there, because your post will just get more views and it just steamrolls. So yeah, I would say just keep being consistent and posting about things that you care about, and people will resonate with it,
Yeah,
and you'll get
reverse
more followers. So
engineer Morgan Ingram, GB, Gabrielle
maybe,
Blackwell,
yeah.
Sarah
Wait,
Brazier.
plug. I'm doing a with James Buckley. James Say What Buckley. I'm doing a webinar with them all around video prospecting and your
Very
deals.
nice.
So maybe I'll put that in the comments when we do it this way.
Should.
Comments. Yes.
And even just like the opportunities to do stuff like that. I
Hmm.
never realized how hard I made myself work before versus now.
Hmm.
Because when you have no inbound leads coming in, no opportunities, no, I like to call them co-pilots. I don't know what a proper term is, but people that you can go do stuff together, like what we do.
Hmm.
Without stuff like this, it's a long road. Just calling and emailing.
Yeah, I don't know where I'd be if I didn't have the community right in front of me and all the content that I have. And a big thing that I did was join groups, Bravado,
Mm,
Rev Genius, SDR Nation,
First
so big
Instant
for my
Sales.
development. And that introduced me to James Say What Buckley, literally, SDR Nation. So it's like, and I have credibility from that. And he trusts me because I was in that amazing community. So it's full circle. And if you can do anything for yourself, it's just join communities, connect with people, and post on LinkedIn and start building your brand, as well as use LinkedIn for social selling as your another avenue, because LinkedIn's amazing.
Can I throw you a curveball for the last couple minutes here?
Yes, go for it.
Slack channels. What are your thoughts on prospecting in Slack channels?
I've never done that. What do you mean Slack channels?
So
Oh,
I'm
like
part of quite a
Rev
few different.
Genius or something? Oof. I didn't mix personal and like that seems more like a personal development area, and I didn't want to be grimy and do that. I don't know. That seems a little icky to me, but
I I agree.
I've seen people do it for sure, and it has worked. So if that's your MO, then go for it.
That goes back to just leaning on where you're getting results. If
Hmm.
that works, then that works. I find that there's such a great place that you just get to know people and then they ask you for meetings. And it's just
Yeah,
another door that you can go and give yourself to someone to open.
very true. Yeah, share your services, your product, and if it's something that they're interested in or hear about, like, hey, this, one of my colleagues is interested or whatever, I would do that for sure. That seems better to me than directly going after people.
I love asking for help in those channels too.
Hmm.
Just
Yeah.
like, hey, how do you guys deal with this? Or
Mhm.
hey, I'm selling to this new market. Does anybody have this type of role that I could just do like a 15 to 30-minute interview and
Mhm.
get in your head without having to give you a bad pitch?
Yeah. And I love asking questions of what your company solves for, like the pain. Like, do you guys experience this? To just kind of like understand it, or someone is like, oh, resonates with it, kind of gives you some kind of insight. I also, another plug, I would go to LinkedIn groups. Like, I used to sell to digital marketers, I still do at Demand Base. And I would just put a pain, like, I'd be like, hey, do you guys experience this? And then just see what happens, and that can also bring you some leads too. So I don't know if anyone else has thought about that, but there's data groups, there's cybersecurity groups, there's so many groups out there that share so much insight that you could tailor. So another plug.
Yeah, the polls used to be really good for that too,
Yeah.
but those days are done.
Yeah.
So, if coming up on time here, oh, we're over time.
Yes,
If
we're
you
time.
had to go and do like a closing, this would be my one best tip for you guys to go and hit the ground running and book more meetings with social selling. What would it be?
I would just say, I mean, I don't know if connecting with more people is too simple, but go after the right people. If they've just changed jobs, if they've posted on LinkedIn, if they're following your company, like there's so many low hanging fruit kind of people on LinkedIn sales navs. Like I said, create lists for these people and just go after them, connect with them with relevant notes. And then boom, once they've connected with you, then engage with relevance or just engage casually, however you want to go about it. And then, yeah, just try to get a meeting, try to get a response. Another thing is just eyeball your my network thing and just make sure you keep double checking who is connected with you, because you could have someone connect with you that's like a VP or director at your one of your prospecting accounts that you could be reaching out to. So don't leave anything on the table and take what's in front of you, because LinkedIn Sales Nav with the combo of LinkedIn is just fire.
I love that too because you go to connect with someone and they or send you a connection request. You have 257 connections in common. I don't even need to look. I just accept.
Just connect. Yeah,
Yeah, because there's
exactly.
trust built into that. If
Mm-hmm.
my one piece of advice is just time block commenting.
Mm.
30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at the end of your day, time block it and set yourself like actually hold yourself to it, put a stopwatch, whatever. I'm going to comment as many things as I can in this half an hour and then just stop. Don't keep going back to LinkedIn and keep switching because that's when
Mm-hmm.
I find that you kind of lose your day prospecting and not really doing much.
Sure, it's a great tip.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Lila.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Take care, everyone.